But let me tell you the problem with mere external rule keeping. If that's all there is, to you, I'm keeping these rules. I have my filthy 5 or my dirty dozen things that I do or don't do. If that's all there is to you, you're going to have a hard time, because the rules just make you want to sin more. If that's all that there is, just the rules, no heart change, no true transformation, no conversion, no character change, what do the rules do? I remember my mother would stick her head out the door. Me and my brother would be in the yard. She'd say, "Now boys, don't go over that hill." And the reason that she didn't want us to go over that hill was because there was a road in front of the house, and she didn't want us getting in the road and get hit by a car. You know what me and my brother would do when she'd say, "Don't go over that hill"? We'd start going, let's go over the hill. No, literally. My cousin lived across the road, down the driveway, across the road. My cousin lived over there. She was standing in the yard, and she called out to my brother, and she said, "Come over here and let's ride bikes." My brother got on his bike, rode down the driveway, and got hit by a car. It didn't hurt him, thankfully, but he got hit by a car. Oh my goodness. But you know what it is? Don't eat that cookie. Don't have that donut. And next thing you know, this thing comes awake in you, doesn't it? You think I'm making this up? I'm not making this up. That's the truth of Romans 7:5, which says, "For while we were living in the flesh, our sinful passions." He's not talking about the law of Moses. He's talking about sinful passion and lust and the flesh. And he says, "For while we were living in the flesh, our sinful passions aroused or awakened by the law were at work in our members to bear fruit to death." A couple of verses later, Paul asks, "What then shall we say, that the law is sin?" Is Paul making the argument that because the law woke up sin in my members that it's bad? He says, no, I'm not making that argument. He says, by no means, yet if it had not been for the law, I would not have known sin, for I would not have known what it is to covet if the law had not said, "You shall not covet." And then in Romans chapter 7, verse 8, Paul stated the problem this way: "But sin, seizing an opportunity through the commandment, produced in me all kinds of covetousness. For apart from the law, sin lies dead." What that means, I believe, I may be way off here, but what I believe that means and what I've experienced in my own life is that rules by themselves just amplifies the problem. Here we are just trying to march in formation. If I can just keep doing it, got so much to do, and I don't want to, and it's all about rule keeping. And I hope I can keep all these rules. It's like that soldier that's keeping all the rules, and you look at that soldier and you say, "Wow, man, look at those shiny boots. You're such a great, you're a great soldier." And inside he's chafing. He don't want to keep those rules. This guy may end up going AWOL because of the rules. And I'm afraid we send this message sometimes even to our children that it's about rules. We're so stern sometimes about rule keeping that we scare them a little bit away, because they think, "I can't keep all those rules." I don't know how many times I've had someone say no to obeying the gospel even though they knew what they needed to do. They would say, "I can't do all that." And I get it. I understand that. Now, that's not to say that that takes away from the fact that we've got to keep the rules, that we've got to obey God's will. We do, and I'm not saying otherwise. There's truth in this idea that we've got to march in formation. We've got to keep rules. In fact, the Bible teaches that. But in Matthew chapter 23, in verse 5, and verse 25, and verse 27, Jesus assaulted. He assaulted the Pharisees because of their rule keeping. Jesus says, "Here's what you all are, you hypocrites. You're like a dish that's been cleaned on the outside, but you've not cleaned the inside." He said, "You're like a tomb or a grave Outside it's whitewashed. It looks like a beautiful garden on the outside. We could just sit here and have a wonderful afternoon. But inside of that thing, there's nothing but dead men's bones. Corruption inside. That's the problem with mere rule keeping. There's no transformation from the inside. You're not going to make it. You're never going to become what you know you should be and what God would have you to be. It's got to go deeper than that. There's a couple of others, and we'll talk about those. I'll fit those in somewhere. But let me get to this last thing. Where are we to begin? And this is where we'll take off next time. Where are we to begin if change is to start, if we're to experience transformation? Well, here's the first thing. There's two things. Number one, admit this. I'm the problem. Romans 7:24, Paul said, wretched man that I am. Paul realized what the problem was. Now, when you admit that you're the problem, you turn then to God. God can change the heart and thus change me. Paul says in Romans 7, verse 25, thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Paul said, who's going to deal with this body of sin and death? He's carrying this dead body around. He's trying to keep the rules. He realizes, no, I've got a problem with this external law keeping. Inside, who's going to fix that? Jesus. I said a mouthful right there. Jesus. Let me tell you how awesome a change agent God is. And we'll talk about this. Let me give you got a resume? Any of y'all have a resume? I had to work on a resume some time back. A resume is just basically saying, the idea is, look at me. You want to have, a really awesome resume that says, I can do this, and I'm great at that, and you need me. And let me tell you about God's resume when it comes to change. Moses, Joseph, David. I could go on, and I could go on talking about the people that God changed. I mean, inside, He changed them. And the outside was evidence of it. Things that God does with people. That's what I'm saying. That's where real change happens. It happens when we turn to God, recognizing He is the answer. He has the right method. He can do it. And the problem is with me. When God does what God does, it's awesome. It's awesome. Okay. God's doing it to me. I keep telling Wendy, God's killing me. The Lord is killing me. And I say that jokingly, but I'm realizing more and more as I get older, like Joseph, that the things that happen in a person's life. This year we had a couple of weddings and a precious loved one to go to be with the Lord. And, job changes. 2017 was such a big year for me. And I realize God is at work. Through His Word, through the church, through what He does in our everyday affairs. God changes people. God changes people. He can change you. You may be thinking, I don't think God could ever really change me. You don't know my hidden sins. You don't know that thing I keep falling down with. You don't know that thing I've tried to quit so many times. You don't. Hey, I know all about that stuff. So does every person that's ever lived. God can change you. He can. I hope that this series will be a blessing for all of us. It may be that you're here tonight and you're not a Christian. I'm going to tell you the most wonderful good news the world has ever heard, and that is that God gave His Son to die for our sins, and His Son died at Calvary. He shed His blood so that all of our past sins could be washed away. And then He has invited us through the precious gospel to come and to be baptized with Christ, to put off that old man of sin, to lay all of that guilt down, and then to be raised up to walk with Him in newness of life. And He is offering you that invitation tonight. Won't you accept While we stand together and sing, we invite you to come to the Lord.